So we'll talk about the Goonies. I'm Tom Scioli, author of I Am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee.
I'm Matt Zeoli.
Saturday, May 6th is Free Comic Book Day, and there's going to be a Free Comic Book Day edition of I Am Stan. It's a comic book length excerpt of the final book, which will be coming out in September, but you can get your little sample on Free Comic Book Day, Saturday, May 6th. I'll be appearing at Phantom of the Attic Comics Oakland in Pittsburgh, to sign copies of I Am Stan, so I hope to see you there. You can follow me on Twitter at Tom Scioli or on Instagram at Tom_Scioli.
Follow me on Instagram at cinema_tune.
And so, the Goonies.
Oh.
The Goonies, are they good enough?
They are definitely good enough. Like
Richard Donner, Superman director Richard Donner, Kojak co-creator Richard Donner.
This is
Danger Island.
When Sloth reveals his official Superman canon, because Sloth is wearing a Superman t-shirt. So
I wonder if there was like a Goonies movie adaptation comic.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Would have sort of fit in. Yeah, sure.
This movie, if I had to list like top 5 movies I've seen the most in my life, this one is it.
Now, like.
It's in the top 5.
When I was a kid and saw the Goonies, it's just like, it's the Goonies, And again, I felt like it's like Steven Spielberg presents or whatever. It's got like a little bit of that in there.
Definitely.
And so it's like, okay, it's like a junior Indiana Jones kind of thing. But I'm also like, now I'm thinking like, is this was this sort of like a 50s thing? Like, is this supposed to be like a Hardy Boys novel? Or, you know what I mean? Like it feels like they're drawing off of some some tradition that maybe not being like boomers were not keen into
it.
Yeah,
because the Steven Spielberg has the story by credit.
Okay.
And Chris Columbus did the screenplay, so this was Spielberg's concoction. Like you mentioned, he's like, I love doing Indiana Jones. Let's try to do a
Indiana Jones with kids. Yeah.
When I first saw this, we recorded it off television. So watching it every time, like, I've seen it a million times, and it was my TV recorded version. So anytime I see the first like 4 minutes, because we recorded it late, so we missed like the first 5 minutes of the movie. So anytime I see that very opening, I get thrilled because I'm like, whoa, there's unseen footage, like whoa, lost scenes.
Yeah,
because our recording of it on VHS picks up right when he lights the gas on fire in front of the jail. So I miss him like pretending he's dead in the jail.
Yeah, that's a great scene. When they're underneath the wishing well, it was a really great job of like getting inside kids' heads and figuring out like what's important to kids, and like the idea of being inside a wishing well is pretty amazing.
It's a dream. Like when we would go to the Westmoreland Mall, we would. Like, our most entertaining moment might be the throwing the coins into the fountain. And I'd be like, oh, but I thought about doing that before I saw the Goonies.
Yeah.
Like, just going into the Westmoreland Mall fountain and, like, scooping up.
What are you doing in there? The security swarms you.
Yeah, because it looks so refreshing in the fountain, and just, like, seeing the glistening coins. And when I would go swimming, I would pretend, like, do Goonies or, like, in the well, like... it's great.
I was, maybe in like first grade or something, when I first saw this. But before I saw it, like other kids had seen it and they were like telling me about it. And it's like, they were telling me about the statue with the penis being put on upside down.
Hilarious.
And about, that's my mom's favorite part, when he says, like...
Those little Marx Brothers.
Tell me about that. And then they were telling me about like the sexual torture devices and stuff, at a time when like I didn't even know what that meant, but it sounded, so I thought the Goonies was like X-rated. Yeah, like before I'm like, okay, this is some heavy stuff.
You see it on a double bill with Midnight Cowboy.
It's
like Midnight Cowboy and Goonies.
Like if they made the Goonies now, like it wouldn't have that element. Like you would have Mouth, and he would be like a wise ass, but he wouldn't be talking about the sexual torture devices in the attic, and they wouldn't be like playing around with a penis. Like it would be clean. And so I feel like in the 80s we're still coming off of the Bad News Bears, and like the big breakthrough of the Bad News Bears was like you'd have all these like little kids saying, go stick it up your ass, go fuck yourself, you fucking piece of shit. Like these little mini Joe Pesci's. They were all mini Joe Pesci's. And so that kind of became the thing of like, I guess if you do a movie about kids, especially if it's like kids on their own on an adventure doing their own thing, they gotta be like swearing like sailors, you know.
I'm cracking up at the mini Joe Pesci. What if it was like multiplicity with Joe Pesci instead of Michael Keaton?
Yeah,
Pesci-plicity.
And there's like kid versions of Pesci.
It's like, yeah, like.
So, but yeah, like, you know, but yeah, that's especially like memories of the Goonies. You think of it being such sort of like this innocent, wholesome movie, but then it's like, you know, you probably wouldn't want to show it to like a kid now, you know.
No.
You know,
He's like, that's my mom's favorite part, and then Mouth does the Marx, Groucho Marx. He's like, if it wasn't, you wouldn't be here.
Right. Yeah.
I'm gonna do a Goonies lookbook where like I'm gonna recreate all of their looks, like Mouth members only and Prince shirt.
I've seen a lot of people rocking the chunk
look, and somebody like I saw something on the internet. I don't know if I'm usually huffing gas, but like Dennis Spielberg production here, Jurassic Park. Dennis Nedry had the chunk pattern Hawaiian shirt on in that, so like maybe it was like a callback. The truffle shuffle sounded like a delicious like dessert.
Right.
Like
now the Rube Goldberg machine, like opening up the door again, like a lot of stuff for kids, and then like all the puzzles, because it is like also around the time of like adventure games and stuff. And Spielberg was a gamer. I mean, he was like he was like one of the first guys who's like he's got like, you know, asteroids on the set of, you know, his movie, or what, you know, like he was an early adopter of video games, and then it's like, you know, he wanted the Raiders of the Lost Ark Atari game to be like the best Atari game. He wanted the E.T. game to be the best Atari game, you know, and we all know how that turned out. But he was like, you know, so I feel like he's thinking that way with this too. Like he's probably playing like Adventure International, like text adventures where you're, you know, and there were like a couple like pirate treasure themed ones and stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised.
That's on his mind where he's vibing from.
Because again, the puzzles and that again, same with like Indiana Jones and stuff. As a kid, I'd be coming up with like these little like puzzle games, these little.
Tom, I'd love to see your like your.
Oh yeah, I draw up these little maps and stuff. Usually it was Indiana Jones themed, and it was like specifically Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom themed, where it's like you got to choose between 3 different mine carts to get into. And stuff, you
that's so great.
And puzzles, and where you got to give a guy this certain, you know, object, and then, you know, this happens, and then.
Tom, that's oh god.
But like
awesome.
like the One-Eyed Willie stuff, where it's like, you know, and playing the keys of the keyboard in the right sequence. Like
having all the clues on the map, like anything map related, just speaks to me.
Yeah.
Like
now One-Eyed Willie, I mean that's like a double entendre.
I know. One-Eyed Wonder Weasel.
Yeah.
He's like, and then like this gimmick here. Love this. That's like that's a Temple of Doom shot right there.
Yeah, right. Reaching into the cave thing. That's the little opening that like maybe there's some bugs crawling around in there. Oh yeah, and he gets his arm locked in it. Mini ball rolling it, like sort of mini version of the ball that chases Indiana Jones.
When you're a kid, they're in like the mine cart, and then you get to do a water slide. I'm like, what? This is
the pirate ship. And then there was also like the big. Because I've like watched the DVD and listened to the commentary on it and stuff, and Dick Donner was talking about how there was like an octopus. They were going to fight an octopus, and so there's like, you know, deleted scenes of the octopus, but he said like the octopus just looked too fake, so they just kind of cut it out. But then when they meet up with the parents at the end, and they're like, we did this, and then there was an octopus, and then it's like octopus. What? I don't remember an octopus.
I always like. You know what? I did catch that before, and then like I ended up watching at some point on YouTube. I would like look. I was just like, I want to see this scene, and yeah, it does look pretty fake.
You know, a couple years before this, they had Robin Williams' Popeye movie, and that had a fake-looking octopus in it also.
They just can't win with the octopus.
Like, but they didn't cut it out of the Robin Williams Popeye, because they had to make the best they could with what they had, because they did not have quite enough to like make them. They had to sort of stretch it out.
That's going to be a future Total Recall
episode for sure. And we'll do the whole soundtrack.
Popeye.
The Popeye soundtrack is exquisite.
Robert Altman's Popeye.
Yeah.
And Chris Columbus did Gremlins, so you got the a Gremlins reference here when he's like, those little things that multiply when you get them wet.
So what was Chris Columbus? What wrote the script?
He wrote the script for this. With Spielberg's story, and then Dick Donner directing it. And there was a
man, think about like the careers kind of piggybacking off of each other, because Chris Columbus just kept going and going, yeah.
That would have been a great set to be on, like, having all those guys, and then, like...
Home Alone could have been a Goonies sequel,
It really could. Kevin McAllister was, like, just as deadly as these guys.
Right,
he's kicking ass.
And you could imagine, like what was the Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern's gang called?
Oh, the Wet Bandits.
The Wet Bandits. You could imagine that being the Fratellis, yeah.
Tom, somebody's got to do fan fiction where the Wet Bandits meet the Fratellis, help them escape from prison for Home Alone 2. They're like the Fratellis.
These kind of stories where, like, you got the group and then they kind of split up.
Yeah.
And then they come back together at the end. Like, some people get the raw end of the stick. So, like, Chunk, like, everybody else is having this kind of cool adventure going from place to place. Chunk is kind of just stuck in a room with Sloth for, like, the whole movie. And you kind of feel bad for him missing. I'm trying to think. There's, like, other movies like that, too, where some... Like, I mean, Empire Strikes Back is a little bit like... Like, I mean, at least for Mark Hamill, because Mark Hamill's like, okay, Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford are having a great time filming that movie. They're having all these scenes with Billy D. Williams. They're doing all kinds of stuff. And I'm stuck, like, by myself in the mud with a puppet. Like, and I don't see any. All I see is the puppet. I don't, because, like, Frank Oz is, like, underneath. And so it's just him talking to a puppet and a robot. And he's just, like, going nuts. He's like, I want some scenes with Carrie Fisher. I want some scenes with Harrison Ford. I want some scenes with Billy D. Williams.
The iconic stinky Yoda.
Yoda with his stinky spittle.
His halitosis spittle.
Yeah.
I always thought, too, when there's that body that the Fratellis have killed and kept in the freezer. And
then Chunk's like... Yes, exactly. Like, Chunk is getting the worst of it.
When that body falls forward, I always thought it looked like Barry Williams. Like, when do you see... It has, like, the bouffant hair, and he falls forward.
Barry Williams is like, I just got a big movie role, and things are turning around. It got a little lean there for a couple years. Things are turning around. I'm going to be in the next Steven Spielberg production, directed by Dick Donner. Oh,
they're like, you should read the script, Barry. He's like, no need. He's like, I'm booking a first class ticket to Hollywood. They're like, I wouldn't. He's like, out of my way. If Barry Williams got that part of falling corpse in this, they're like, Barry, you really should read the script. But he's like, get out of my face.
There's like parts to the Goonies I forget, because it's kind of like 10 movies. There's all this stuff, because then you got like you got the kind of like jocks bullying the nerds kind of element that kind of comes in for a little bit, and then like that. I love that scene where Josh Brolin is on like his brother's bike, and then like the kids from school see him, and then they grab him, and
I love it.
All this great, and you almost kind of miss it, like I love all the adventure stuff, don't get me wrong, all the caves, but you kind of miss the sort of like just 80s teenage movie kind of stuff, when it goes away.
Tom, I'll have to show you another deleted scene.
Yeah.
It's before they go to the Fratelli's hideout. They're at a convenience store with the map, and they get a real map and like try to match it up to see where to go. But the that jerk in the car that drags them is there with Steph and Andy. So there's like a little teen movie scene where they're like butting heads in the convenience. So there's it's cutting room floor stuff.
After his Oscar win, it's really fun seeing Ke Quan again.
Yeah, the slick shoes. He's Data, and like
he's Data. He's the names. There's two famous Datas or Datas, and it's Brent Spiner from Star Trek, but he had it first. Here, Ke Quan had the name first.
There was a some musical offshoots from here. There's a ska band called the Slick Shoes. There's a band called the Fratellis.
Yeah, I mean, slick, because that would be like James Bond's car would leave like an oil slick. Yeah,
I love the Joe Pantalonio's like.
Joey Pants is in it. Early role
with Davi. Him and Davi running around. He does the flip and lands on his groin on there. He's like
again, Chris Columbus
beating up the.
Because isn't that exact scene in Home Alone?
100%. This.
Oh, my bananas!
My mini meatballs.
Oh, my meatballs and spaghetti! Yeah, and the guy's singing opera. That was freaky. Like, when he's in with the Fratellis, it is freaky. And yeah, the Barry Williams corpse. But then even, like, when the one Fratelli brothers starts singing opera at him, it's so aggressive.
Oh,
it's like...
It scared the shit out of me.
It's
like, it was really scary when Barry Williams... cold dead corpse falls forward. He's like... He's got a bullet in his head. He's like... It's funny because he's...
The casting director is Sherwood Schwartz Jr. or whatever. Sherwood Schwartz's son. And he's like... he's getting some payback on Barry.
Barry's in the corpse role, and for some reason, he's bossing people around on set. He's like throwing his weight around.
Now, we got Mama Fratelli, and, throw Mama from the train, Mama Fratelli. How come they never did a buddy movie with Clara Peller, Where's the Beef, and Mama Fratelli?
Holy
like, how come they were how come there was never like a movie with a scene of them like holding some giant gun and like going after the bad guys, like a Murtaugh and Riggs kind of thing?
They're like, my mom would love Throw Mama from the Train. They thought that was the funniest, like, and how come they team up?
Throw Mama from the Train.
I gotta revisit that. It's been a little while. Like,
that's a Total Recall movie.
We'll do Throw Mama from the Train. Barry Williams is bossing people around. Like, he's a day player.
He's like going around telling people, "I'm the star of the new Steven Spielberg, Richard Donner co-production."
They're like, "That's a wrap, Barry." He's like, he stays around in like Shemps, another role.
Right.
But yeah, he falls forward dead. I thought it was Barry Williams. Corpse number 1.
Oh yeah, how about playing the skeleton fingers as an organ? That's a pretty cool
gimmick.
idea.
Robert Davi, like, the scary scene got me was when Chunk flags the car down and you see his like face appear in the side view mirror.
Yeah, Chunk really, like, he's the guy who has to go into the heart of darkness. Like, he has like a really dark journey, but like in a way, like, he could be like the protagonist, like in an ensemble, he could be the protagonist. I mean, I know it's Mikey,
but really Chunk's
is following that hero's journey in a big way.
We love product placement here on the Total Recall Show, and like, I think Baby Ruth.
Yes, Baby Ruth.
You
can't have a Baby Ruth without thinking of this movie.
No, it has another great product placement in Caddyshack. In the pool, Bill Murray's like, "It's good, it's good."
Right, yeah.
Talk about, like, really, I mean, it's iconic, but if you're the Baby Ruth people, like,
you don't want,
like, how do you, they're like, we can have it in the movie, it's going to be a piece of shit.
Yeah, your product is going to be a stand-in for shit in a movie. How's that sound to you?
I'm like, I got the green light. It's literally going to be a piece of shit.
Did you ever play the NES Goonies 2?
I've rented a Goonies game from Farmore back in the day.
Okay.
It had to have been. It would have been NES.
For the NES, it would have been Goonies 2. I played way more Goonies 2 on the NES than seeing the movie. Like, I logged way more hours.
Awesome.
It was like an early NES game, and it was a really in-depth adventure where you're like, it's vast. You're going. It's like sort of side-scrolling. But you're going through all these doors to different parts of this house, and then there's like caves and stuff, and then it'll turn into like first-person perspective, 3D, where you're going through, and there's like a mermaid you have to rescue. It really expands the scope of the Goonies stories, and of course you're waiting for a Goonies sequel, which never comes. So and I always wondered, like, how come for the NES there's Goonies 2, but there's no Goonies 1? There's just Goonies 2, and I thought, oh, this is the sequel to the movie. They're making a video game sequel to the movie because it does.
It's canon.
Yeah, the story does branch out. There's like mermaids, there's stuff like that.
Super cool.
So much fun. You're Mikey. You have like a yo-yo that you use as a weapon. Then you get other weapons. You're fighting the Fratellis and stuff. But there's giant rats. There's all kinds.
You gotta feel that, like, man, maybe there's a Goonies 2 script out there that this was like.
Yeah, I wonder.
They got some, like, their ideas from
because it feels like. Oh yeah, that would be a natural place to go next. Have like a mermaid show up. So in my childhood, obsessed with this Goonies 2 game, played the hell out of it. And it's also one of those ones where like you couldn't just like figure it out on your own. You know, you'd have to talk to other kids and then you know and get tips and stuff. Figure because it was all this like intricate kind of puzzle solving and stuff. But then I did like you know, when I was a grown up, I found out that there was a Goonies 1, and it was an arcade game, and maybe it came out for the Famicom, but it never came to the U.S. as like an NES game. But there was a Goonies 1, which was like a it was very basic compared to Goonies 2. It was just kind of like a straightforward action game. Had sort of the same mechanism of the side-scrolling parts, but it didn't have the depth. It didn't have like the exploration of various stuff, and it didn't have the first-person perspective.
I gotta track down. I have like a Miu Mini. I'm gonna see if that's on there.
Yeah, play Goonies 1, play Goonies 2, but Goonies 2 is because it was kind of like, you know, you had the Zelda games, you had Metroid and Castlevania and stuff, but like, what do you do in between? Like when you're waiting for Zelda 2 to come out or something, like you need some kind of adventure, and Goonies 2 like
fit the bill,
filled that void. Yeah,
that's sick. I'm gonna have to jam on that, man.
Yeah,
that's definitely canon. That's the sequel. The official sequel to Goonies is Goonies 2.
Yeah, Goonies 2. Like if they ever make a Goonies 2 movie, they're gonna have to, like, the fans will demand that they reference the NES game. I do want, like, because that NES game, like, all the kids I knew played, like, we all passed it around. Like, I don't think I ever owned it. I think I, like, borrowed, like, we're passing around, you know, you pass around the games.
In elementary school, I remember at lunch passing Nintendo games around. Like, I would bring the game in just to show it off.
Right,
like,
sure, yeah.
Show a game off.
Yeah, Goonies 2 was like one of those. So like everybody played it, everybody was into it. So I wonder if you did kind of bring up like Goonies 2, mention it to like somebody who grew up with the NES and like how widespread. Because like, okay, the Super Mario movie is like this massive hit, and I knew it was going to be. I knew that there's like generations of people who played Super Mario Brothers. Maybe you know, maybe like the tastemakers or whatever don't know it, but like it's out, it's fully saturated. So I wonder, I mean, of course Goonies 2 is not on the same level as Super Mario Brothers, but I do wonder if like there's this like palpable energy for like a Goonies 2.
I would kill for like a classic looking Goonies 2. Yeah. I want the Goonies 2 to look like this one, and
sure.
They're like don't, if you're gonna do it, don't make it too like chintzy.
I mean, Spielberg's been keeping his, like, maybe it's time for Spielberg to direct a Goonies, you know?
That's okay. I'm gonna throw a coin into the wishing well.
And you know, Stranger Things is kind of like a Goonies, you know, because Stranger Things is taking that Spielberg thing of like E.T. and stuff, but Goonies is a big part of it too, of like kids getting on their bikes, going out, having an adventure. Like, I'm sure there is a Goonies 2 script floating out there where it's all these guys all grown up, because like a lot of them are still active actors, you know. So Josh Brolin, Rudy.
Sean Astin.
Yeah, Sean Astin. Ke-Huy Quan. Maybe Everything Everywhere All at Once has made the Goonies 2, you know, sequel with the same cast, like that much closer to being, you know, coming to fruition.
I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah.
Oh, because like there was a Tom Cruise Ben Stiller movie that was like this close to happening, and it was like killed right at the very end. It was called The Hardy Men.
Okay, the Hardy Boys all grown up.
Yeah, it was Ben Stiller and Tom Cruise as the Hardy Boys grown up. That would have been so awesome.
You know, the Hardy Boys was kind of that, because when I was a kid and I'd watch like the reruns of like the Parker Stevenson and Sean Cassidy, and like when I was a kid and I'd watch that show, it's like we had a bunch of like the Hardy Boy novels that were like my mom's when she was a kid, and it's like there were like little kids on there, but then you'd watch the Hardy Boys and it's like those guys look like grown-ups to me. So it's like, where's the boys? Like, obviously, you know, they're supposed to be in their teens in that show in the 70s, but they were probably in their 20s, you know, when they're playing it. So they were already Hardy men. So. Hardy
men, like,
and I'm sure Ben Stiller like grew up with that 70s
show.
Version. Yeah, that 70s Hardy Boys.
Tom, I would love to see the Goonies get back. The Goonies have to get back in that.
And of course, it would be like, you know, The Force Awakens or whatever, where it's like they have kids too that are having an adventure, but like they're having an adventure too. You know, it's like and striking that balance of like the old and the new. You know,
I saw
or Cobra Kai. You know, kind of like that.
Chunk is looking pretty slim and trim and svelte.
The Cyndi Lauper Goonies song demands a like maybe like an 80s, the 80s synthesizer. When Cyndi Lauper shows up in the movie, they're watching TV. She's not singing "The Goonies Are Good Enough," or is she?
She is.
She's singing. She hasn't gotten to the Goonies part. She's singing like other verses. She's not. They're like, how come she's singing about us? Good enough. Good enough. Here we are, hanging on the streets of green. Yeah, it's the one with all the like wrestlers. Captain Lou is good enough. Here we are, hanging on the strings of green. You want to take the lead on the vocal?
Okay.
Now, does she say the Goonies are good enough at any point in this?
No, she
Okay.
did.
Because I always thought the song was like, the Goonies are good! So she doesn't mention the Goonies in it. Okay, that's
There's like, I think there's a background where there's like, they're like Goonies. They do like a cast like little drop.
Goonies! Yeah, for some reason in my head it's always, the Goonies are good enough! Chuck is good enough! So let's do What's Good Enough again. What's good enough for you is good enough. For me it's good enough. It's good enough for me. Yeah.
Rico Show is good enough.
Yeah. The Rico Show is good. The Goonies are good enough. The Rico Show is good enough. Chuck is good enough. The Rico Show is good.